I'm running through nature, and I am so happy. so, pollen. Mount pollen is the worst. Hey, you. Today we're going to talk about the way that movies use camera shots to define their characters and their emotional worlds, and speculate a little on why that works in the universe as God created it. Our first example comes from, you guessed it, The Sound of Music. No, the other Sound of Music. So in this scene, director Robert Wise gives us a sweeping landscape shot. The music swells, the camera swoops in like a bird towards a character who's dwarfed by a beautiful landscape. It's the Sound of Music shot, don't you know? So, what's the message of this shot? The message is, this is Maria. She's a free spirit, bro. She's like one with nature. She can't be contained. Even though the nuns will try to contain her for a minute, and Captain Von Trapp will try to contain her, and the children will try to contain her, and the Nazis will try to contain her.
Nazis. I hate these guys.
But they can't. Maria will basically succeed, even though it will take her a whole lot of screen time to do it. So it's a good thing this shot stays with you through the entire movie. And at the end of the movie, in order to track the freedom and newfound free-spiritedness of the entire Von Trapp family, we get one more epic swooping shot. We've come full circle. The whole fam is as happy and free as Maria. In your face, Nazis. And you know what? While we're at it, the message of these shots is also epic. Epic. As in, we want to give you the feeling that this story is epic. It's got the grandeur, it's got the scope. Sure, it's about Maria and the Von Trapps in this one town in Austria, but it's also about something much bigger, which is the threat of Nazism, the start of World War II, the country of Austria, and free Europe itself. If the movie doesn't start with a big epic shot, but just starts with some nuns chewing out Maria, you might think to yourself, okay, this is a movie about a free spirit. But you might feel a little dissonance later when it turns into a movie about much bigger things. But you're not confused, because this shot does stay with you through the entire movie. Which is important, because the rest of the movie is not exactly an epic. But some epic footage at the beginning really gives you the feeling that this little story of the Von Trapp family is part of a much bigger story, the story of World War II. Anyway, an interesting fact about Sound of Music, originally a stage musical, no sense of bigness, took place on a set. To give you the geopolitical context, there were songs about the geopolitical context. In the movie, you can cut some of that stuff out because you've already given the sense of it. So moving on, I want to talk about some other ways the camera can be used to tell you all about a character. Case in point, take the wonderful romantic comedy, The Shop Around the Corner, directed by Ernst Lubitsch, one of my favorites. Jimmy Stewart plays Alfred Kralik, a sales clerk who does not get along with his new co-worker Clara Novak.
Mr. Kralik, I don't like you.
And spoilers ahead, Kralik is sending letters to a woman he's in love with but never met. Clara is sending letters to a man she's never met. They're both obsessed with these pen pals. They both hate each other. What could be going on here? Yep, that's right. It's the plot they gave to You've Got Mail later. You're welcome, moms of the world. At a key moment in the movie, Clara Novak's hand enters the postbox and reaches eagerly for a letter from her romantic pen pal. She doesn't find it. Her hand wilts like a flower, and then it withdraws. The tiny world of the postbox is the world that matters to Clara Novak. And you see in just a few seconds what she wants and how she feels, without the filmmaker even showing her face at first. Pretty neat, huh? This is very efficient storytelling. Hey, there are loads of other shots that do this kind of thing, like here's one from Citizen Kane, where we see Kane himself giving a big speech. He's got a giant poster of himself behind him, and he's throwing his arms out as he talks loudly and the camera pushes in. What do you think that tells you about Kane? It tells you something. Here's Patton, even more glorious and grandstanding than Citizen Kane, maybe. Or what about John Wayne here, standing framed by a doorway in The Searchers? He's a racist and a killer, a necessary one in the Old West, but he'll never belong. He'll never be accepted into happy domestic life. Hey, just for fun, let me show you some other character shots from movies, some of which you've maybe seen, some maybe not, and notice how much you know about the characters just based on those shots alone. My deeply profound theological insight about all this? Isn't it cool that God gave us brains that can associate two things with each other? So a mountain or a hand or a person's posture in a doorway can tell you everything you need to know about that character's soul. Our brains are awesome at putting two thoughts together and making a new thought. You remember that Moses wasn't allowed to look at God's face because he would die. But the psalmist can tell us that God is like a shepherd. And suddenly we know something about God, because our brains are wired that way. And incidentally, it lets us enjoy things like poetry and art and movies. Pretty cool.